There is a stillness that arrives just before great transformations unfold. This stillness isn't hollow, but saturated with anticipation. Within that calm, something ancient stirs. A deep knowing that what has long ruled without fairness is about to be undone. When I witnessed the vision of power being stripped away, it wasn't thunder that spoke, but a profound silence. And inside that silence, I comprehended God doesn't speak to intimidate, He speaks to liberate. Denial 2025, a covering will be lifted not just from one individual, but from an entire system that grew arrogant, blind, and distant from truth. This shift won't be a mere change of faces. It won't be one figure replacing another. This is a sacred correction of imbalance. A turning of a page that far too many refuse to let go of. Humanity has been immersed in enduring illusion, masks worn for so long that even those who wore them began believing in them. But God's timing is not concerned with appearances. He waits for the precise moment when exposing the lie will awaken the most hearts. To witness such a vision isn't to claim control over what comes. It is to receive the responsibility of awareness. The image of someone removed from their position of power is not about vengeance or spectacle. It is the manifestation of divine justice, a justice that transcends courts and public opinions. It arises when the divine declares that a certain vibration can no longer exist in the light that is arriving, a vibration of deception, dominance, and self-worship masquerading as leadership. Do not be deceived. The removal is only what meets the eye. What God truly unveils is the truth behind the throne, the unseen machinery of manipulation, the architecture of fear, the frameworks that enabled one figure to ascend and kept countless others silent. Power in this world never stands alone. It is fed by belief, maintained by fear, and upheld by the absence of truth. When these supports are withdrawn, what crumbles is not merely one man, it is the exposure of all we refuse to examine. Many will be stunned. They will ask, how could this occur? But the more important question is, how did it last this long? Because we permitted it. We exchanged truth for comfort. We surrendered clarity for the illusion of security. We praised those who appeared strong rather than those who were sincere. And when the fall occurs, many will grieve, not for the man but for the idea they attached to him. That is why this collapse is not external alone. It serves as a mirror for every soul. It prompts each of us to ask what within ourselves allowed the illusion to survive. The unconscious parts of us feed the unconscious systems around us. And removing one person from power only holds meaning if it prompts us to remove illusion from within. God does not reveal to punish. He reveals to awaken. He unveils so healing can begin. Yet healing doesn't begin with applause. It begins with humility. Those who cheer the downfall remain trapped in ego. Real awakening peers beyond appearances. It mourns the collective lie. It recognizes the cost of all the years spent believing in falsehoods. It understands that while one man exits a chair of power, the deeper seat within countless minds and hearts must still be vacated. That transformation cannot occur in headlines. It must happen in silence, in reflection, in the spaces where the soul whispers. The world is preparing for a shift. Many won't want to face it. But readiness is not comfort, it is courage. The courage to face the truth even when it wounds. The courage to release what we once fiercely protected. The courage to admit we were mistaken. That is where real power begins, not in declarations, not in storms, but in those quiet seconds when the ego yields to truth. The one being removed will not descend alone. Every structure built on the same energy will tremble. You will sense it not just in the headlines, but in your body, in your interactions, in how you perceive existence. Because the fall of external power ignites countless inner transformations. The illusions you once leaned on will wobble. The routines you followed unconsciously will begin to feel oppressive. The truths you tried to ignore will rise in volume. And in that rising moment you will be faced with the decision. Will you cling to the old or surrender to the new? Because God's vision isn't rooted in destruction. It is a threshold to recalibration. But that threshold is narrow. It cannot be crossed with arrogance. It cannot be crossed while blaming. It cannot be crossed in distraction. You must be empty. Empty enough to listen. Without sound. Empty enough to absorb the light. Revealing what still needs release. The one being displaced is not the beginning, it is the midpoint. What matters most is what follows. When the world reacts in shock, will you remain composed? When others seek retaliation, will you seek clarity? When uncertainty expands, will you remain rooted? Because out of collapse, real leadership emerges. Not the type that dominates, but the type that emanates peace. You are being equipped for this moment. Not to seize a throne, but to hold space. Not to govern, but to align. Not to command, but to restore balance. Many believe that losing power is final, but divine wisdom is deeper. What is lost outwardly must now be reborn inwardly. You are not here to watch events unfold. You are here to rise above them, and you cannot transcend what you still grip. Release your loyalty to illusions. Release your attachments to false strength. Release your grasp on personalities, and begin holding on to principles. This is the invitation of this era. You were not given this insight to fall into fear. You were given it to prepare. Not externally, but internally. Because the true upheaval is not global, it is spiritual. It shakes the roots of your beliefs. It dismantles the structures of limitation. It opens the sealed places within you that once settled for comfortable half-truths. And in that opening, something profound is born, a knowing, a vision, a quiet strength that seeks no validation. It simply understands that on July 9th, the world will shift. But those who are awake know that the shift is not about one man. It is about all of us. It marks the end of one story and the emergence of another. Written not through control, but through consciousness. Not by a few, but by the many who are awake. And the first act is to recall this. When power is removed, it isn't retribution. It is a purifying. It is the clearing away of what has outlived its purpose. It is the unraveling of what no longer belongs. And what emerges in its place is truth, waiting silently to be seen. Truth doesn't scream. What? It doesn't demand. It simply holds. It observes. It remains steady while illusions rise and collapse. And when the noise fades, it is still there, unbroken. That is the kind of truth we must now embody. The kind that does not sway with the crowd. The kind that does not seek approval. The kind that burns softly from within. So ask yourself now, before the day arrives, what power within me must dissolve? What illusion am I still clinging to? What false image must I step away from? Because this transformation is not about one individual. It involves us all. Each of us carries a quiet throne inside, one where ego rules through fear, appearances, and control. But that seat must now be vacated. The soul must return to lead. And that shift, while silent, is the greatest revolution of all. You were made for this moment. Not to shrink from it, but to meet it with clarity. Not to hide, but to emerge. Not to react, but to reflect. And from that reflection, to act. Not as a follower of what crumbled, but as a beacon for what is coming. When illusion crumbles and truth stands clear, the soul is called to one thing: to live in harmony with what it has seen. That is when the real journey begins. Tend to your inner kingdom before the outer one collapses. These words aren't poetic abstraction. They are coordinates, sacred direction, reminding us that our most profound transformations do not begin with events outside of us, but with what we neglected or buried within. The vision you were given, the displacement of power, is not entertainment. It is not a prophecy meant to provoke. It is guidance. It is a divine preparation. It is a call to return to the one sanctuary that cannot be shaken. The still center of your soul. This is not about nations or politics. This is about frequency, a shift in resonance, the dissolving of constructed illusions. Every illusion you witness disintegrating externally is a reflection of what must dissolve within. Too many have spent lifetimes watching the window, reacting to storms, without realizing they themselves remain in turmoil. What is the value of forecasting the sky when thunder rages within your own chest? The fall that approaches, the one that's already begun, will not be seen by eyes fixed outward. It will be felt by hearts tuned inward. Not with strategy, but with silence. You do not need to flee your cities. You don't need to hoard supplies. What you truly need is to return to that sacred place within you, the one untouched by the outside world. That inner sanctuary, that still center of awareness. In that space, panic cannot enter. Confusion holds no power. Only steady awareness remains. And with that awareness comes real strength. When individuals collapse or institutions fall apart, the shared human spirit instinctively reaches for something solid. That's why fear spreads so rapidly. It thrives in the absence of inner grounding. Most people haven't cultivated the inner framework required to remain stable when external systems crumble. They weren't shown how to find stillness within. Instead, they were conditioned to search for saviors, for figures of authority, for something to cling to that looked like control. But the divine doesn't raise these symbols to take his place. They exist only temporarily until the soul is strong enough to awaken. And when they are removed, it isn't judgment. It's a calling, a call to lead yourself, to master your own energy, to rise not through domination, but through self-mastery. That is what it means to prepare your internal world. It means learning to face discomfort without running. It's the training of the mind to return to your breath when everything outside is shouting. It means shedding the belief that you need external order to feel secure. Because real safety doesn't come from policies or institutions. It arises from internal harmony. And this harmony must be cultivated just like a skill or a garden. You nurture it daily, not only in chaos, but especially in the still moments before. You breathe into it. You follow that gentle inner voice, the one that's been whispering beneath your surface thoughts for years. That voice isn't loud, but it is wise, deeply so. And when all else collapses, that voice will remain. Preparing your inner world means removing the false rulers you've allowed to govern your mind, the tyrants of fear, the judges of self-doubt, the whispers of comparison, the dependence on others' validation. These silent voices have influenced you more deeply than any leader. But now is the time to displace them, not with violence, but with courage, with grace, with a determined heart, because the true conflict isn't what you'll see on the screen or hear in headlines. The real battle is between the version of you that prefers to stay numb and the version that's awakening. An awakening isn't a singular event, it's a path, a rhythm, an unfolding. The world might tremble, but the actual quake begins inside. If you've never learned to ground your spirit, someone else's downfall will shake your own foundation, not by design, but by your lack of discernment. If you haven't practiced hearing the quiet truth, you'll get lost in the noise. And here's the truth. Your peace was never supposed to be borrowed from others. Your stability was never meant to depend on external forces. Your reason for being isn't conditional on peace around you. It's meant to be lived now, especially now, in the midst of uncertainty. There's a beautiful contradiction in readiness. It doesn't mean hiding. It means becoming more clear, more generous, more solid when the world feels unsteady. The soul that is ready becomes a lighthouse, not one of dominance, but of presence. A breathing reminder that there exists a different response, a higher frequency, a softer approach, and that frequency, calm, still, anchored, holds more power than any lecture, any command, any public message. That energy becomes medicine. It soothes fear. It invites a quiet peace. It disrupts hysteria. But that type of energy is no accident. It's forged like a flame. You must feed it ahead of time. When the match is struck, you don't start seeking wood. You must have gathered it already. When the storm approaches, you don't begin building shelter. You must have built it slowly, intentionally, plank by plank, breath by breath, in the unnoticed hours. That's how you construct your internal kingdom. Quietly, humbly, with the commitment of returning each day, returning to your breath, returning to what you believe in, returning to the stillness that links you to God. On July 9, many eyes will widen in disbelief. But those who have already been awake will remain unmoved. They will comprehend something deeper, that not every fall is a disaster. Some collapses are blessings. Some endings are doorways for truth to enter. And those rooted in clarity will not resist the shift. They won't scramble to fill the vacant throne. Instead, they will turn inward and reflect. What has shifted within me? What illusions have I released? What new role am I being summoned to carry? Because real power reveals itself in responsibility. When the false structures vanish, when the distractions dissolve, we are left alone with our own reflection. And that's when many will see they've never truly known themselves. They were built around reaction, external stimulation, dependency. When all of that vanishes, they will feel a hollow space. But that emptiness is not a punishment. It is the sacred beginning. It is the soil where a new awareness begins to root itself. That is the birthplace of real presence. And that presence is what the world has been aching for. Do not wait for collapse to discover your stability. Begin today. Prepare from a place of love, not fear. Love for your clarity. Love for your alignment. Love for the version of you that will look back one day and be grateful for the peace you constructed now. Meditation isn't just a discipline. It's the architecture of inner strength. Every moment you rest in stillness, you add a brick to your inner stronghold, not to shut the world out, but to build a sanctuary where clarity can thrive, a place to return to when the external chaos grows loud. The removal of external power is a metaphor, a signal of what can no longer continue, what no longer aligns with where the collective is heading. But the true story is the shift that begins within. It will echo through our shared consciousness. Some will deny it, some will spiral into confusion and blame. But those who have done the inner work, they will ascend, not to rule but to guide, not because they seek spotlight, but because their very presence offers light. Preparing your inner world is not egocentric. It is the holiest offering you can extend to others, because when the outside systems dissolve, those without roots will reach for something. And if your roots run deep, you will be the steady tree, the living anchor, the gentle symbol that what is true cannot be stolen, that peace can exist, even here, even now. This isn't about flawless living, it's about being fully here, present enough to witness your own reactions, present enough to choose calm over collapse, present enough to stop waiting for someone to rescue you and begin following the map of your own soul. There is a soft intelligence inside each of us, but we only hear it when we are ready to turn down the volume of the world. That willingness is your preparation, that decision is your quiet strength. And that steady presence is what will carry you through whatever storm may come. The outer structures may fall, but if your inner temple is built on truth, it will remain unbroken. And from that place, a new way will emerge, not fueled by fear, not forced by dominance, but by the unwavering bravery of those who chose to prepare before the evidence arrived. The shift has already begun. Don't wait for broadcasts or events. Begin now, through breath, through stillness, through the sacred simplicity of returning to yourself. There are moments in history when the downfall of one figure is not the end of their reign, but the ignition of a larger ripple, a ripple that flows through perception, through emotions, through the unseen layers of collective awareness. One act, one resignation, one dethroning can shatter the illusion of permanence and remind the soul that power, unless woven with truth, cannot last. When God showed me the vision of a man being removed from authority on July 9, 2025, I did not witness merely a political shift. I saw a mass stirring of human consciousness. I saw those lulled to sleep by comfort, fear, and tradition beginning to awaken. Not because someone demanded it, but because they simply couldn't keep their eyes shut any longer.